I don't need an introduction. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, I know that you guys have seen some things from Logan Paul lately, and his rant to a certain degree. Some people claim that he calls Candace Owens a white supremacist and all of the above. And, you know, I'm just going to keep it 100 with y'all. White guilt is an illness. And people of color and people in power understands that this illness can be spreaded if you manipulate a weak-minded person or a person who's soft on the inside, gushy on the inside, wet toilet paper, marshmallow soft, to where they feel a level of guilt that people push on them without doing an adequate amount of research to figure things out. So I feel like Logan Paul has fallen in that trap, and white guilt has attached to his soul. And now he's thinking that being an activist and telling black people the woes of the black community and trying to speak up for black people, and you ain't black, that's somehow virtuous. So I'm going to debunk a few things that he said. We're going to listen to some of what he said, and I'm going to go through methodically and give commentary, because I think the young man is completely lost on his approach to say that America is racist. Just because you make a lot of money and you're doing very well don't mean you got to feel guilty. I do very well too. I'm a YouTuber too. Your YouTube is bigger than mine because you've been doing it for longer. And you make a lot of cool and some stuff is cringy, but you make a lot of good stuff. That's why you're bigger than that. But anyway, roll the film.
I've done so much to educate myself over the past week.
This right here is a clear sign when a white person say, I've done so much to educate myself. That means I've brainwashed myself. That means I've looked at propaganda to formulate this white guilt inside of me.
Because I've typically stayed out of politics, and I'll get into this. And this is all coming from things I've learned, personal experiences, and finally I feel at a good spot in my life where I can speak up and speak with my chest out, my chin up. America is racist. Listen carefully to what I said. America is racist. I did not say Americans, although there is definitely an embarrassingly large amount of Americans with the archaic belief that superiority is based on skin color. However, I'm talking...
Now, let's talk about that. That's one way, because you're not addressing the fact that black people believe that superiority of skin color is a thing. You're only perceiving that it's white people. That's what I'm taking from what he's saying. And that it's impossible to say that America is racist if Americans are not racist. What is it, a floating boogeyman that's somewhere creating racism and the people are not racist, but the country is racist? Like the country, an inanimate object, is somehow taking a personality?
Talking about America as a nation. We are all incredibly unaware of how deeply intertwined the ugly roots of racism have embedded themselves in the foundation of this country.
False. Foundation is not rooted in racism. Slavery wasn't even about race. Slavery was about availability of cheap labor that came from the continent of Africa, where Africans enslaved other African people and sold them across the entire world. In this country, before it was what it is today, Indians had slaves. White people were enslaved by other white people. The white people here tried to enslave Indians. It did not work. How were they going to expand cheap labor across the entire, what we know as the United States of America, or as far as that the colonies would go? They needed a multitude of cheap labor. Continent of Africa is where you got it from.
Every influencer, every celebrity you follow, you've seen them use the term systemic or systematic racism in their posts, but I'm going to explain to you exactly what that means. 13th Amendment, 1864, slavery is abolished. Problem solved, right? Not quite. There is a criminality clause conveniently nestled in that amendment that says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So you're free, unless you're a criminal.
How is that somehow unreasonable that you become free unless you have become a criminal, have done something that has been criminal, that will put you in a situation where you're not free. If they wanted to make it a problem, then every black person that's free will be a criminal. And then there would be no free black people. No, there were a lot of black people who were not criminals, who were free. And over time, they became free in its fullness. But propaganda tries to tell you that this is the first step of criminalizing black people.
Best way to keep blacks as slaves legally is criminalize them. Keep them in prison, take their freedom. It's a term that's been coined mass incarceration, and it's evident in the statistics. America itself is responsible for 21% of the world's entire prison population, of which 1/3 are African Americans. Additionally, 1 in 3 black men have the chance of going to jail in their life, and that number is 1 in 17 for white men.
You know why? It's not like you walk down the street and you go to jail. It's not like the boogeyman come get you in the middle of the night and take you to jail. If you look at any statistical data, black people disproportionately commit way more crimes than any other race, by far. Even crimes against other races, black people commit twice as many crimes against whites as whites commit against blacks. Look it up. Don't believe me. Go look it up for yourself. When you're talking about a population of people, for whatever excuse you want to give, of the black population to commit over half of all violent crimes in the country, over half, make up 13% of the population, commit nearly half, some statistics say over half, of all murders are perpetuated by black people, and most of the murder victims are black people. Go to Chicago. Show me a white Chicago somewhere in this country. There ain't none. Show me a rolling 60 gang that is prolific in the white community. There ain't none. So the reason why black people are incarcerated in massive amounts disproportionately, because they commit disproportionate amount of crimes. Now you can go to the nuances of why, but the stats still remain.
Blacks are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of whites. This is me citing the NAACP. That is not good enough for America, though. So what's another way to ensure inequality legally? Segregation. Jim Crow laws, which enforced racial segregation through the mid-1960s.
Now, the whole world, the whole United States was not subject to Jim Crow. Jim Crow was in southern states, run by Democrats, which this guy probably votes for. Democrats push for segregation. Democrats push for the KKK. They were the military arm of the Democratic Party, was the Ku Klux Klan. Joe Biden himself gave the eulogy of Robert Byrd, who was a former Klans member, and Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all of them were at his funeral. Strom Thurmond, who Joe Biden said was a mentor of his, was one pushing for segregation, pushing up against the civil rights movement. And so was Robert Byrd and many other Democrats. The 94 crime bill that led to the incarceration disproportionately of black people was done by Democrats, Joe Biden. But he is not informed on these matters.
Bro, the mid-1960s.
Now let's talk about the proliferation of black growth, Black Wall Street, all of the economic success was happening in spite of segregation. Here's something that people like, Mr. Logan don't understand, is that not everybody agreed with Martin Luther King when it came to desegregation. Many black people believed and fought for them to have their own situation going, have their own businesses. Black people had all kinds of businesses and commerce within the black community. People like Madam C.J. Walker in the early 1900s. She was the first female millionaire out of any female millionaire of any race. Madam C.J. Walker, Sarah Breedlove, was the first female multimillionaire. And if you can put the money into today's language, inflation and all of the other things that go on with money over time, she would be a billionaire. She was the Oprah Winfrey in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. Black people were doing incredibly well. Black marriages were, I would say disproportionate. Black marriages were 70% of black households had a daddy in it. All the way up into the 60s. Okay, keep rolling.
This is my parents' generation. That is how close we still are to all of this f***ery. And not to mention the prominent yet not so blaring nuanced nature of elected officials to keep the marginalized oppressed, from Nixon to Reagan to Clinton to Bush. Whether you are aware of it or not, It's evident in the media, propaganda, our education system, literally everything. The historical narrative of the black man, or virtually any non-white group, but profoundly African Americans, has not been one of equality or fairness.
According to the white man? Because I don't see it that way, and I'm a black man. It hasn't been of opportunity of fairness. Yeah, good luck. If you go to a particular school, there's a thing called affirmative action, where black students who are not as qualified as white students, who had nothing to do with slavery, mind you, have nothing to do with slavery. 60% of white people that migrated here came after slavery. Have nothing to do with slavery, no lineage of slavery, but somehow you go and perform in school because a black kid, a person looked like them, happened to be a part of slavery, that somehow they get an advantage even though they're not as qualified as a white student. Why are the minorities of Asian minorities not suffering the same ailments of the black community? Why not? When they were enslaved in America in modern history. But they don't deal with the same thing that black people deal with. Educationally, they excel. Financially, they excel. They excel more than white people in this country. And Asian people are the minority. Black Africans that come from Africa, that migrate here, not black Americans, they do better economically, educationally. They do much better than black people that are living here. It's culture. But when you are listening to propaganda and you have white guilt, you cannot address any accountability to anybody. You blame it on the white man.
For the longest time, I was afraid to speak up because I thought I'd piss people off, because I'm politically ignorant, and even because of my polarizing nature. I have made reprehensible mistakes in the past. So who the am I to suggest a way to better and progress humanity?
I agree with that.
That was what I thought. This past weekend, I found the answer to that question. Who the am I to better and progress humanity? I am a human. I'm just like you. I'm just like you. And I'm just like you. I am a human who's made mistakes. I've learned from them, and I've worked hard to educate myself and create a better future for me, my friends, my future children, and the world around me.
Now, think about this. You are a human. You made mistakes. You are suggesting that there's a level of forgiveness that should be provided for you. That through forgiveness, you should be able to proceed further and do well in the world. But yet, you're steady blaming white people from hundreds of years ago and you're not being fair, because the abolitionists, the people who helped free the black slaves, the people who voted to free black slaves were white people. And then in this country, there was white people who never supported slavery, who never owned a slave, who never thought it was a good idea, who always knew it wasn't right. There was the North and the South. There was free states and slave states. There were groups of people who never supported slavery, who never had anything to do with slavery, that were white. If you look at it through the progression of history, the slave states and free states were equal, but just about the same amount of free states, the same amount of slave states. So that means at the same time that there were slave states, there was a lot of people that didn't believe in it. Even within the slave states, it was rare that a person could actually afford to own slaves. But somehow, some way, we make this about America's foundation being racist.
It's 2020, and I'm sure I'll make more mistakes in my life, but one mistake that I refuse to be a part of is the mistake of silence. I will not be a part of a generation that is written on the wrong side of history, and I will not stand by as my fellow humans are brutally and unjustifiably murdered at the hand of the state or any oppressor.
Let's talk about this, Logan Paul. You ain't talking about the unjustifiable loss of life from black people by other black people, because you're not educated on this subject matter. You're just talking out of, I don't know what white guilt is the only title that I can think of that explains your behavior. And the reason why I say these things is because black on black violence has destroyed more black lives than anything that you can count in history when it comes to the death of black people. If you look at the numbers in Barack Obama's administration, his 8 years in office, more black people were killed by other black people in inner city violence than our soldiers who lost their life in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. More black people died in the inner city than we lost in war in Afghanistan and Iraq in the 8 years that Barack Obama was in office. You don't want to talk about that. On average, between 6,000-7,000 black people are murdered every year. 98+% of those murders are murdered by other black people. And you're comparing the state as killing black people when you're talking about unarmed black people, which everybody with a brainstem understands that just because you're unarmed don't mean you're not a deadly threat. It doesn't mean that you're not a deadly threat. However, if I give it to you, every unarmed black man who is shot and killed is wrong. If I just acquiesce to a false argument, lo and behold, if you do your research, twice as many white people are shot by police, twice as many white people are shot unarmed by police. But let's go back to the white guilt part, which makes you feel like you really understand the black community. When you look at unarmed shootings, 14 a year compared to 7,000? All you got to do is do simple math. Let's do this, Logan Paul, over 10 years. A 10-year period of police unarmed shootings. Let's say it average 14 a year. We can say it average 17 a year. Then we can say 20 a year. 20 a year over 10 years. That'll be 200 black people that were shot unarmed over 10 years. Let's do the 7,000 black on black violent deaths that occur every year. Add a zero to that for 10 years, and you're talking about 70,000. Which one is most effective and detrimental to the black community? 200 or 70,000 black people that are murdered every year? And we're not going to even talk about the abortions. And we're not going to even talk about the residual effect of black on black violence in the black community. You know why, Logan? You never lived in the black community. I did. I understand how the violence perpetuated by other black people can affect the community, can affect generations to come. When your daddy is dead because somebody else's daddy killed him, and that boy's daddy is in prison for life for killing your daddy, how do you think that affects the relationship within the community? How do you think that affects two families that do not have a father growing up moving forward? All you got to do is watch First 48. Now, I'll let you finish.
Listen closely. One of my biggest learnings from all of this, and I'm embarrassed that it's taken me 25 years to realize this. It is not enough to be not racist.
Bro, you gonna cry?
You have to be anti-racist.
Yes. Not being racist is anti-racist. I don't know why people have this slogan. If you're not racist, then you don't support racism. That vicariously you could be considered anti-racist.
Condemn those who feign superiority because of the color of their skin. Friends, hold friends accountable. Hold your family accountable. Hold yourself accountable. And most importantly, we must hold our authorities accountable. Police officers, politicians, policymakers. As Killer Mike said, bully the politicians at the voting booth.
Yeah, by voting for Democrats who were a part of all of this oppressive things that you were talking about. Vote for Democrat at the booth. Bully your politicians at the booth. Vote for Joe Biden, who authored the 94 crime bill to put more black people in prison than any other legislation that we know of in modern history. But vote for him. Yeah, bully them. Vote for the Democrats. Vote for the Democrats who push Jim Crow, who push segregation, who push slavery. Democrat Party is the party of slavery. You're so woke that you sleep.
Make your voice heard. Attend a protest. Speak up against injustice. If you're white, if you look like me, use your privilege.
So now what you're saying, and I'm in 20 minutes in, you have privilege over me. You're saying that if you're white, you are better than black people. No, I don't want to hear nobody say anything else. You just suggested that if you're white, on a broad scale, use your privilege. You think you buy into white privilege because you buy into the fact that you think you're better than me. You think you have a privilege over me. This is what white guilt, how it makes you a lunatic and how it makes you racist. Because I don't believe in white privilege. I don't think white people have a privilege over me. Now, if you outperform me, then you have a privilege over me. If there's an environment in which your skill set is better than mine, you have a privilege over me. But because you're white, in no form or fashion do you have a privilege over me. I became a police officer in this racist institution of policing in America, and I was an incredible police officer. Never saw a racist police officer while I was on duty ever. Never been discriminated on my department, we had 12 black people on the department, full of white people and Hispanics, and the other people sprinkled in there. But you, who've never lived as a black person in America, is trying to make the statement that you have a privilege over me. All right.
And for those who do not think white privilege exists, you are blind. You are delusional, and you are part of the problem.
If you don't think that white man is better than me, then you are delusional.
I can count on 0 hands the amount of times that I have feared for my life at a routine traffic stop.
I can count on my hands how many times I can count. 0. 0 times have I felt unsafe on the traffic stop. 0, Logan. 0. You know why? Because I'm not a criminal. And I'm not resisting arrest. I'm not taking police on a high-speed chase. I don't have a stolen gun in the car. I don't have no fear. I ain't never been shot by the police. I ain't never came close.
That has never happened. Half of the reason I'm able to get away with some of my hooligan shit I do in my vlogs is because I'm a white kid.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's plenty of black people that do plenty of shenanigans on social media and get away with it.
I'm confident that I do not have to fear for my life should the cops show up.
So am I, Logan. So am I. Why do I fear the police officers? They ain't gonna do nothing to you unless you're doing what all these nuts are doing, fighting and running and pulling guns. Neither do I, Logan. Neither do I. But because of your white guilt, you are the racist person to believe that because I'm black, somehow I should fear the police. All right, I'm gonna let you finish, bro.
Acknowledge and weaponize your privilege. I believe we're going to a protest today. You can bet your fucking ass I'll be in the front line. Knowing all this about America, its racially charged background, its inability to truly treat humans as equals, even after 244 years since its inception.
Which is a complete lie. Complete lie. We are the first nation in world history, to have the concept, and I should have did this at the beginning of the video, first nation in history to believe in the concept of inalienable rights, rights given to you by God. We're the first nation in world history that we know of to espouse those principles. We don't believe in the king has the right over you, has the authority over you. We believe that God gives you rights that man can never take from you, and that the government's position is to ensure that you retain those rights in case of infringement of foreign or domestic. And that's let me complete that sentence. The foreign or domestic actors, people who are trying to thwart your constitutional rights. First nation ever to do that. Arguably the first nation to end slavery around the world. Everybody else still doing slavery. We ended it. And these uneducated folks are out here acting like slavery exists in America. Like somehow we had a unique relationship with slavery. I want you to cry about how they still have it in Africa. How in East Africa, the Muslims were enslaving black people. They still enslave black people today. Okay.
We must now work towards finding the solution. And if you are an influencer or celebrity friend of mine, I hope you are using your platform to continue to spread the message of solidarity and unity.
In racism. Share the message of racism. Share the message that white people are better than black people. Share the message that black people don't have to take responsibility for their actions, and that black people's scapegoat is not to work hard, not to be the best version of themselves, but to blame the white man when they don't want to do right, and then blame the white man believing that they can't do right. I don't think it's intentional, but brother, you're being a racist. This is what racism is, not the other stuff. Racism is you believing and perpetuating the idea that you're better than me. That's what it comes down to. When I hear a white person say that white privilege is real, that shows me that that person believes that they're better than me, because there is no system in place that provides you opportunities that I don't have. You cannot even legally discriminate against somebody in the workforce. Your whole business will get shut down. You cannot commit a crime against somebody and it's racially motivated in America. It's an aggravated charge. You will get charged with a hate crime. What are you telling me YouTube is racist? You got an account just like I started my account. How are you going to pick apart certain institutions and people within those institutions to call them racist? You can't. So you have to say it's systemic, meaning that I can't prove it. There's no evidence of it. I just believe it exists. No evidence. I live life just like any of the other people. I have never been on an airplane and somebody told me I can't fly or I can't sit in the seat that I bought because I'm black. It has never happened. Never happened to Logan and never happened to me. I don't fear police because I don't commit crimes. Never been brutalized by the police. I don't even care. You shouldn't. Nobody should.
I do not have all the answers, but I know.
I know you don't have all the answers. You ain't got to say that. I know for a fact you don't have. I don't think you have any answers.
We must now reverse engineer the system as a collective.
See?
We must open our eyes
Marxism.
and realize that there is only one race,
Marxism.
and that is the human race. On behalf of Breonna Taylor.
Oh, he just said Breonna Taylor. Damn, this video was only going to be like 15 minutes.
We must change.
Breonna Taylor? Logan, Breonna Taylor? You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. Breonna Taylor is kneecap deep in the dope game, and her boyfriend pulls a gun on the police, and they return fire on him, and she get hit in the crossfire. She wasn't sleeping in her bed. She wasn't some innocent EMT. She was involved in a criminal investigation in which her rental car had a dead body in it. Logan, go look at the Tatum report, bruh. We got all the information there for you.
On behalf of Ahmaud Arbery,
who had nothing to do with the police, breaking into people's houses, terrorizing the community. He didn't even get shot until he fight the guy for a shotgun and get shot.
We must advance. And on behalf of George Floyd, a crackhead of all crackheads, resisting arrest, acting a fool, ended up getting killed by, in my opinion, a bad police officer. And the hundreds of others who have been unjustly
No, give me the hundreds of. Name some more people so I can disprove you.
murdered in this country. We must evolve.
Bro, why you got to read this? My thing is, it's so disingenuous when you see people reading a heartfelt message.
I'm shaking.
Because you soft, bro.
Powerful words, my friend. That's
a bunch of betas. All these dudes are betas. He got to breathe heavy. Bro, you living in a fantasy world. What you said is not that impressive, and it ain't that big of a deal. You should stay out of it because you're not fully informed. And ain't nobody going to check you on none of this stuff because they all on marshmallow level.
Yeah, it's a hot take, but I couldn't agree with you more. I really think you...
I dare you to bring me on this show. I mean, I don't need to be on your show. I can make this video. But if you want to have this conversation, we can have this conversation. We can have a conversation offline. You ain't right, bruh. And all these other white people just feeling guilty. It's a trick of the enemy. It is a psychological mindset to create guilt in you and to create vengeance in me so we can hate each other. That's all it is. You feel guilty. I hate you. You acquiesce. And I still hate you because there's nothing you can do to change this lie that has been told to me about generations that neither one of us probably even is associated with. But when you re-bring it up, I'm going to always hate you and you're going to always feel guilty and you're going to make two decisions. You're going to completely collapse and cower, or you're going to now want revenge against me. That's how they keep us locked down. That's how they keep us hating each other, because I guarantee you that Logan can never count on his hand one time he was racist to a person. I can't count on my hand how many times I was racist to a person. Neither one of us experienced racism, probably, but yet the boogeyman is somehow out there. Anyway, I love you guys, man. Share this video. I'm going to make it as a little live stream because I think people need to know how detrimental this false narrative is in this broken mindset. Anyway, I love you guys. See you on the next one, man. I'm out.